Then I'd be happy to go back to either gentleman if they have a question here. I would like to be clear, Mr. Kaplan, about the visual picture, the picture that you described. Also, during this period, I saw my first animal remains that were devoid of any insects. I instructed my personnel to stay clear of these carcasses until we were able to burn them. You're trying to illustrate what? That even the insects didn't want to be near these dead animals? I mean, what is? I want you to elaborate on that statement.
The desert where we were located at, the 3rd Armored Division's area of operations or tactical assembly area, known as TA Victory, was a very desolate place. There was either none or very little vegetation in the area. Thus, there was very little or very few food sources for any scavengers. When you saw camels and other animals that were devoid of any insects or enemy remains that were void of any insects, flies, desert flies, you immediately became very suspicious of what was going on, considering that our areas were full of flies, i.e. our mess halls, our Class A ration points. So we instructed our folks to stay away from them until those remains were buried and or burned.
Handled the remains and burned them?
Yes, sir. We had grave registration team that was assigned to my responsibility as a support operations officer. In other words, a logistics officer for our battalion, and they were charged with handling enemy remains.
Bottom line to that was it was a picture that you remember at the time because it seemed very unusual to you.
Multiple times, yes, sir.
All right. Here's a video to put out here. I'm going to put this video out here to guys who served in a FOB over there. I'm going to show you just more proof of what outside the wire looks like compared to inside the safety of the FOB. Now I know, I'm going to get the same old response from all the, YouTube masters and master warfighters and FOB master warfighters, etc. They're going to roll in and watch this video and learn something from me once again, and then they'll go and spin and recite it and tell it in their ongoing conversation with all their buddies when they go and talk about what badasses they are here off of YouTube. All the stories they spin. They won't spin these stories before the camera, and I guarantee you're not going to see them come here and put out the facts like what I'm putting out right here, because these videos that I'm putting out here are off of real life experiences, my actual time that I served in the military. I'm not making up anything. I don't need to make up anything, and that's why a lot of these guys get angry at me and run around, because they got to band together, dude. Inadequacy. Inadequacy is a bitch, got to get a lot of inadequate people to band together to talk a lot of smack. So I'm not a very light guy here. It doesn't matter. I'm here to put out the facts and put out the truth. And what this gentleman was saying right here, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was Desert Shield before the ground war kicked off. Dead sheep out in the desert. I seen those. I was after the ground war, by the way. We've seen those where I was at, out in the desert, dead sheep. And one of Saddam's terrorist type warfare, his warfare tactics, it was to get the insurgents. And by the way, he was working with Al Qaeda as also after the ground war. But we'll use Desert Shield for effect. A lot of guys were being exposed to these pesticides before Desert Shield even kicked off, and they didn't even know it, dudes. Just like guys like myself, after the ground war were being exposed to these pesticides and never even knew it hit us. And that's, if you remember, Saddam Hussein made that quote several times in the newspaper. October 6th, 1994. You remember that specific quote that I'm always citing here on my channel. Saddam Hussein put out in the Iraqi state-controlled newspaper, "Our striking hand will reach America, Britain, and Saudi Arabia before they even know it hit them." Well, this is one of the type of warfare, terrorist warfare, that he was talking about. This is not like Vietnam. This is not like Afghanistan, and this is not like Iraqi freedom. Saddam was having his insurgents dip these sheep in pools of TEPP, what is known as TEPP. TEPP is the active ingredient behind the nerve agent VX and Sarin Gas. Now, TEPP can be used as a pesticide. And they were dipping these sheep, running these sheep, hundreds of these sheep, through these pools. And they would feed these sheep upwind from troops. You see Haji out there with, his garb, his rags, and he'd be walking out there and feeding these sheep, and everything looked normal. Everything's looking normal, right? And all these sheep, of course, animals like sheep, they flock towards food. They remember where the feed trough is. They know where to get food. So they'll feed them upwind from the areas where they know that the combat teams and guys on the ground are stationed. Okay, and the sheep will seek out the food. And they'll go eat the food, and they'll be upwind after they've dipped this TEPP. They dip them in this TEPP, and this wind, man, these sheep could get pretty close to you. They depends on how, they strategically were doing this. They would know how far away to keep these sheep, because they've run these tests. They staked shias in the ground out there and tied their arms behind their backs. And Saddam was doing this stuff before we hit the ground. He would flock these sheep up in front of the shias and do experiments to see what it would do to the insides of these, because he hated shias. He was Sunni. Kurds and shias, man, he was killing them the whole time, man, during the Hidden Gulf War. But the sheep would go eat the food, right? Okay, the next day they go re-dip them in this TEPP again, man. Go feed them. They flock to the food upwind. Okay, depends on whatever your area you're at, man. Whatever area you're at, they know strategically, and they can strategically place, sheep inside, even in fences, whatever, man. I mean, I got pictures of those sheep out there, just flocks of them just walking around, with no fence, just walking around everywhere, dude. And I didn't even know this stuff at the time. You know what I mean? Of course, this is not something that they briefed us on. They briefed us on other things because we were after the ground war, so they briefed us on, intel was being gathered. But this is something that I didn't know, and I'm sure the Army didn't know, and I don't even know if they know it now. But they were using these sheep as warfare. I mean, these sheep, when they move, of course, they move around, and like I said, these are terrorists, man. These terrorists do this. This is the sneaky type of warfare. And see, they're not going to attack an artillery unit like mine with bullets and bombs, because they know that we'll turn them into hamburger. So the best thing to do is, like I said, they dip them in the TEPP, move them over in front of our units. Striking hand hits us before we even know what hit us. Leave country, we thinking everything's fine, man. Everything's fine. Then next thing you know, this neurological illness starts kicking in, and he's over there laughing. This war criminal has been laughing, and he's been doing this to rotations and rotations of veterans on the ground for years. And when the vets are on the ground over there, like I said, every day, man, they knew to go dip those sheep, and then those sheep know where to go to the food bowl, man. So even if you're moving around, they still, strategically know where you move at. They strategically know where Kuwait is, Saudi. They know, they got intelligence, man. They know how to. These terrorists know how to fight a war. Or back then, Saddam, his regime of terrorists, and Al Qaeda, they know how to fight a war. They don't hit armored artillery units or tankers or Bradley fighting vehicle grunts with bombs and bullets, man. They know better than that. They might go, like I said, go back into the city and then blow up an Air Force barracks, and then use another bomb whenever those guys, first responders, come in. Bam. But they won't. They don't try that stuff with combat teams and armored units. So just showing you guys more of what's what's going on here. And dudes, I don't mean to sound arrogant, man. I just don't like there. There's been some guys here in the past. Hopefully these guys are changing. They try to call me a fake, and they try to say all this stuff. And dudes, it doesn't matter. Look, I don't care what you believe about me. The whole reason why I'm putting these videos out is trying to help the veterans. I'm trying to get these guys to see what happened to them over there, because they're still walking around trying to figure out what happened. They're still walking around trying to figure out how in the hell this war criminal exposed them to this shit. And someone comes up and tries to say, well, this guy's full of it. He's making this up. They might believe, even though it's hard to see how they could believe you, but they might believe you, and then those guys end up not listening to what I'm saying, and they don't put two and two together, and then next thing you know, they're paying the price. We get enough of these dudes together to show that this war criminal was using these, for instance, this warfare right here, using these sheep like this with this TEPP on them. Okay? And this wind blowing in our face. Hundreds of these sheep, man, it's going to poison you, dude. Neurologically poison you. And enough people get together and say, hey, you know what, man, I remember this, I myself know for a fact that they were doing it, but I didn't know it, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't put two and two together at the time, people. And I have pictures that I snapped, because I seen animals, and I was like, what the hell, I'm out in the middle of nowhere here, man. What the hell, what in the world's going on here? Well, this is back before we knew what Al Qaeda was capable of. But like I said, that saying, our striking hand will reach America, Britain, and Saudi Arabia before they even know it hit them. They were molding this type of warfare way back then. Excuse me. And so now y'all see more, man. Sorry about the long rant, but I just wanted to put this out here, man. Hopefully people take this with the Gulf War veterans that were there during Gulf War I. And like I said, man, even Iraqi freedom and Afghanistan vets, you never know what these terrorists do, man. You never know. They we're over there, and of course they know that Americans are not going to go and try to slaughter their animals. They knew back in those days. We're not aware of that kind of stuff. Now, with me putting this video out here, well, now you think about it. Next time when you're over there and you see flocks of these sheep or something like that, or camels and stuff upwind from you, well, better definitely take a look at it, man. So, I just want to put this out there. Yeah, he was using TEPP. TEPP is the main active ingredient behind Sarin Gas and VX nerve agent, and he was using TEPP right up until about the September 11th attacks. In fact, the fact that we found out, the intelligence came out that we found out an intelligence leak that he was using this TEPP on these sheep. And that intelligence leak came out in around August of 2001. Well, September, if you remember, that's when we went to war with Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda was also involved in these ground, in these little attacks with these, these livestock, of dipping them in the sarin. So, just want to put this out there for you guys, man. Not sure who wants to believe it, but hey, take it for what it's worth, people. I know it's true, so like I said, I don't need to make up anything here, man. You can either be a person who's smart and know the facts, or you yourself can be a sheep. Respect for citizens, carry firearms, criminals carry weapons, and peace.